The smell hit me before the alarm even started screaming through the building. It was that distinctive electrical burning scent, sharp and chemical, mixing with something else I couldn't quite identify but knew instinctively was dangerous. I'd been working at the kiddie gym as a weekend janitor for almost 6 months now, saving every dollar for my graphic design courses at the community college, and nothing in my job description had prepared me for this moment. Panic erupted around me like a wave crashing against rocks. Parents were sprinting toward the exits with their children clutched against their chests, their faces twisted with fear. Staff members were pushing past each other through the emergency doors, some screaming into their phones, others just running blindly toward safety. The overhead lights flickered once, twice, then steadied, but smoke was already beginning to curl down from the ceiling vents in thick gray tendrils. My feet wanted to follow everyone else. Every instinct in my body was telling me to run, to get out, to save myself, but then my brain caught on something that made my stomach drop. The back corner, the private party. I checked the reservations myself this morning when I'd arrived for my shift. There had been a birthday party booked for 2 o'clock. I glanced at my watch. 2:50. What if someone was still back there? The thought paralyzed me for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then I was moving, not toward the exit like everyone else, but deeper into the building against the current of fleeing people. Someone grabbed my arm as I passed. "Are you insane? Get out!" A woman shrieked at me. I shook her off and kept going. The smoke was getting thicker now, hanging in the air like fog, making my eyes water and my throat burn. I pulled my t-shirt up over my nose and mouth, but it barely helped. Each breath felt like inhaling sandpaper. My vision was blurring, the familiar hallway becoming strange and distorted through the haze. Then I heard it. A cough. Small, desperate, followed by a whimper that cut through all the chaos and alarm noise like a knife through fabric. I rounded the corner into the party room and almost missed him. He was curled up behind the climbing structure, partially hidden by deflated silver foil balloons that had fallen from the ceiling. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and pale skin, clutching a stuffed dinosaur against his chest like it was the only solid thing left in the world. His eyes were squeezed shut, and his small chest was heaving with the effort of coughing. "Hey!" I shouted, dropping to my knees beside him. "We need to go right now." He didn't move, didn't even open his eyes. His lips moved, forming words I could barely hear over the alarms. "Papa said to stay here until he comes back." My heart clenched. Of course. He'd been told to wait, so he was waiting, even as smoke filled the room around him, even as the danger grew with every passing second. "Your papa wants you safe," I said firmly, reaching for him. "And right now, safe means coming with me." He still didn't move, and I realized he was frozen with fear. There wasn't time to coax him or comfort him or do anything gentle. The smoke was getting lower, pressing down from the ceiling like a physical weight. My lungs were screaming for clean air, and black spots were starting to dance at the edges of my vision. I grabbed him and lifted him bodily into my arms. He was lighter than I expected, all sharp angles and trembling limbs. His arms wrapped around my neck automatically. The dinosaur pressed between us, and I could feel how fast his heart was beating against my chest. Getting back to the exit felt like moving through a nightmare. The smoke was so thick now I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. I kept one hand on the wall, following it by touch, counting doors until I found the emergency exit. The metal bar was hot under my palm when I slammed against it, and then we were outside, stumbling onto the sidewalk, and I was gasping for air like a drowning man breaking the surface. I set the boy down as gently as my shaking hands would allow. He immediately bent over, coughing violently, his small body convulsing with each spasm. I dropped to my knees beside him, one hand on his back, trying to remember the basic first aid I'd learned years ago. Fresh air, that was the most important thing. Keep him breathing. "Leo, Leo, where are you?" The voice was raw with terror, loud enough to cut through all the sirens and shouting. I looked up and saw a man running toward us, and even in my oxygen-deprived state, I registered certain details with startling clarity. Expensive suit, now disheveled, designer shoes that definitely weren't meant for sprinting, dark hair falling across his forehead, and his face. God, his face was the picture of absolute horror, eyes wild and searching, mouth open in a soundless scream. He reached us and literally collapsed. his legs just giving out beneath him. His hands went to the boy immediately, running over his arms, his face, his chest, checking for injuries with trembling fingers. Can you breathe? Are you hurt? Tell me where it hurts, baby, please. The words tumbled out in a rush, barely coherent. I'm okay, Papa, the boy whispered, and the man made a sound that was half sob, half exhale, pulling his son against his chest so tightly I thought he might accidentally hurt him. The paramedics arrived then, materializing with their equipment in calm, professional voices. They separated the man from his son gently but firmly, administering oxygen, checking vitals, asking questions. I stayed back, suddenly feeling like an intruder on an intensely private moment. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Delayed shock, probably. After what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes. The man stood up and walked over to me. Up close I could see he was younger than I'd first thought. Maybe early 30s. His eyes were bloodshot, and there were tear tracks cutting through the soot on his face. He went back in. It wasn't a question. His voice was hoarse, probably from shouting. Everyone else ran out to save themselves. You went back in for my son. I didn't know what to say to that. Someone had to check. I just happened to be there. What's your name? He was looking at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable, like he was trying to memorize every detail of my face. Jonah. Jonah Mills. He reached out and took my hand in both of his. His grip was tight enough to hurt, and I could feel him shaking. I'm Gordon Ashford, and I don't have words adequate enough to thank you for what you did. You gave me back my entire world today. Really, it's okay. Anyone would have done the same thing. But they didn't. His eyes were filling with tears again. Everyone else ran. You're the only one who went back. You saved my son's life. Jonah, that makes you the most important person I've met in a very long time. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded awkwardly. Behind him, Leo was sitting on the back of an ambulance, oxygen mask over his small face, watching us with curious eyes. He still had that dinosaur clutched in one hand. Gordon released my hand finally, seeming to realize how tightly he'd been gripping it. I'm sorry, I'm not handling this well. I just keep thinking about what could have happened if you hadn't been there. But I was there, I said quietly. And he's safe. That's what matters. He nodded, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand. I need to get him to the hospital for a full checkup. But Jonah, I'd like to see you again, to properly thank you. Please. Before I could answer, a paramedic called him over. He squeezed my shoulder once, then hurried back to his son. I watched them drive away in the ambulance, lights flashing but no siren, and wondered if I'd ever see either of them again. 3 days later, I got my answer. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, delivered by a courier in a crisp uniform, who made me sign for it like it contained state secrets. After he left, I stood in my tiny apartment staring at the cream-colored paper, expensive and heavy, with my name written across the front in elegant handwriting. There was no return address, just those 2 words, Jonah Mills. Inside I found 2 things. First, a handwritten note on matching stationery. The penmanship was precise, each letter carefully formed, but I could see places where the pen had pressed harder, where emotion had bled through into the ink. Jonah, please accept this as a token of my gratitude. I know it isn't enough. Nothing could be enough for what you gave back to me. But I hope you'll allow me this small gesture. Sincerely, Gordon Ashford. The second thing made my breath catch in my throat. A check. $50,000. I sat down heavily on my couch, staring at the piece of paper in my hands. This was more money than I'd ever seen at once. More than a year's worth of rent. More than my entire tuition for the design program. It was transformative, life-changing money. It was also completely impossible for me to accept. I grabbed my laptop and searched Gordon's name, needing to understand who I was dealing with. The results filled my screen. Gordon Ashford, founder and CEO of Ashford Digital Marketing, worth somewhere in the hundreds of millions. Articles about his business acumen, photos from charity galas, and tucked in among the business news, older articles about his wife's death in a car accident 2 years ago, how he'd become a single father overnight, how he'd somehow managed to raise his son while running a multi-million-dollar company. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit together, but they didn't change my fundamental problem. I couldn't keep this money. I wasn't some hero. I'd just done what any decent person would do. But there was no return address on the envelope. No way to send it back. Which is how I found myself standing in the lobby of Ashford Tower the next morning, feeling completely out of place in my worn jeans and faded jacket. The receptionist looked at me like I was something unpleasant she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "I need to see Gordon Ashford," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Do you have an appointment?" Her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "No, but this is important. I just need 5 minutes. Mr. Ashford doesn't see anyone without an appointment. If you'd like to schedule something for next month, I can check his availability." She turned back to her computer screen, dismissing me entirely. I was trying to figure out my next move when the elevator dinged behind me. I turned and there he was. Gordon, in another expensive suit, phone pressed to his ear, talking rapidly about quarterly projections or market shares or something equally corporate. And beside him, holding his hand, was Leo, wearing a small blue backpack that looked comically oversized on his narrow shoulders. "But you promised we'd go see the penguins today," Leo was saying, his voice carrying that particular note of disappointment that only children can truly master. "You said after my doctor appointment we'd go to the aquarium." "I know, buddy, and I'm sorry, but something came up at work and I need to handle it." Gordon sounded tired and guilty in equal measure. Then Leo saw me. His whole face lit up with recognition, and before I could react he'd dropped Gordon's hand and was running toward me. "Jonah, you're here." I knelt down automatically as he reached me, and he threw his arms around my neck in an enthusiastic hug that nearly knocked me over. Over his shoulder, I saw Gordon freeze mid-sentence, the phone slowly dropping from his ear as he stared at me. "Hey there, Leo," I said, carefully extracting myself from the hug. "How are you feeling? Everything okay after the other day?" "I'm all better. The doctor said my lungs are perfect. And Papa bought me 3 new dinosaurs. Because I was brave." He held up fingers to emphasize the number. 3. One of them roars when you press its belly. "Want to hear?" "Maybe later, when we're not in the middle of a fancy office building," I suggested diplomatically. Gordon had ended his call and was walking toward us now, his expression impossible to read. When he reached us, he looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "Jonah, I didn't expect to see you here. I came to return this." I pulled the envelope from my jacket pocket and held it out to him. "I appreciate the gesture, but I can't accept it." He didn't even glance at the envelope. "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because I don't need payment for doing the right thing. Because accepting this would make it feel like a transaction, and I don't want to remember that day as something transactional." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening around his eyes. "The amount isn't about payment. It's about showing you that I understand the magnitude of what you did. You could have died going back into that building, but I didn't. And Leo's safe. That's what matters." "Papa," Leo tugged on Gordon's sleeve, "can Jonah come to the aquarium with us? Please? Since you have to cancel your meeting anyway?" I expected Gordon to make an excuse, to gently explain why that wasn't possible. Instead, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher and said, "Would you? I know it's sudden and you probably have plans. But Leo's right. I was supposed to take him, and if you came along it would make the Castle feel less like a broken promise. I don't want to intrude on your father-son time." "You wouldn't be intruding." He said it with such certainty that I found myself nodding before I'd fully processed the decision. The aquarium was crowded with families and school groups, but Gordon seemed to know how to navigate around the worst of it. Leo was enchanted by everything, pressing his face against glass, asking 1,000 questions, pointing out every fish with breathless excitement. But I kept noticing Gordon watching me instead of the exhibits, and whenever I caught him at it, he'd look away quickly, a faint flush coloring his cheeks. Finally, during a lull while Leo was occupied watching the jellyfish drift by, I turned to face him directly. "You keep staring." "I apologize. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable." He rubbed the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. "It's just that Leo hasn't been this animated in a very long time. Not since his mother died. Watching him be genuinely happy again is making me realize how much we've both been just going through the motions." "I'm sorry about your wife." Leo mentioned she passed away. "Car accident. 2 years ago." His jaw tightened. "I was supposed to drive that night, but I had a late meeting." I chose work over family and she paid the price for my choices. I've been trying to make up for that ever since, but I'm not sure it's possible to balance being present for your child and running a company that employs 300 people. Seems like you're doing your best. That's all anyone can do. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. My best still involves disappointing him regularly. Missing soccer games, forgetting show and tell days, canceling plans because some crisis needs my attention. But you were at that party with him. That's what matters. I'm trying to be better, but corporate culture doesn't forgive CEOs who leave early for school functions. There's always someone willing to work longer hours, sacrifice more, be more dedicated to the bottom line. Then maybe you need better people around you. He looked at me with surprise, and then genuine amusement crossed his face. That's remarkably bold advice from someone I barely know. Sometimes strangers can see things more clearly than people who are too close to the situation. We left the aquarium as it was closing, Leo asleep against Gordon's shoulder, worn out from excitement. In the parking garage, Gordon shifted Leo carefully to one arm and used his free hand to pull out his phone. "Give me your number," he said. "What? Your phone number? Please." When I hesitated, he added, "I'd like to see you again, Jonah. Not as a thank you or out of obligation, just as someone who wants to get to know you better." "Why?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "Because when I'm around you, I feel like I'm not failing at absolutely everything. Because Leo responded to you in 5 minutes better than he's responded to 3 different therapists over 2 years. Because you're interesting and kind and you dove into a burning building without hesitation, and those are the kind of people I want in my life." He paused. "Is that enough reasons?" I gave him my number. The messages started small. A text 3 days after the aquarium. "Leo drew you a picture today. He wants to know if you like pterodactyls." Another one a week later. "He asked if you could come over for dinner sometime." No pressure, just passing along the request. I should have kept my distance. Getting involved with a billionaire CEO and his grieving son was so far outside my normal life experience that it felt like stepping into someone else's story. But there was something in those messages, in the careful way Gordon phrased things, that made it clear he wasn't just being polite. He genuinely wanted me around. So I said yes to dinner, and then yes to helping Leo with a school project about dinosaurs, and then yes to coming over when Gordon had an emergency meeting and his regular childcare had canceled. Each time I told myself it was just helping out, nothing more complicated than that. But complications have a way of finding you anyway. It happened on a Tuesday night. Gordon had called me sounding frantic, explaining that Leo's nanny was sick and he had back-to-back virtual meetings that he absolutely couldn't miss. Could I possibly come over for a few hours, just to make sure Leo wasn't alone? I arrived at his penthouse apartment to find it was less of a home and more of a beautifully decorated office space. Everything was clean, modern, expensive, and utterly impersonal. Leo was in his room doing homework, and I helped him with math problems while Gordon took his meetings in the study with the door closed. When Leo finally went to bed around 9, I found myself alone in Gordon's kitchen, washing dishes that didn't need washing just to have something to do with my hands. That's where he found me when his meetings finally ended. "You didn't have to do that." He looked exhausted, tie loosened, hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "I wanted to. Besides, it's just a few plates." He leaned against the counter, watching me dry my hands on a towel. "The board wants me in London, 6 months, minimum, to oversee the European expansion personally. That's a big opportunity. It's a disaster." The words came out harsh, bitter. Leo just started connecting with his therapist. He's finally sleeping through the night without nightmares. His teacher says he's coming out of his shell, making friends, and they want me to uproot him, pull him out of school, drag him to a foreign country for half a year. So tell them no. It's not that simple. My grandfather built this company from nothing. It's a family legacy. If I refuse, the board has grounds to remove me as CEO. They've been looking for an excuse ever since I started prioritizing Leo over quarterly earnings. I set down the towel and turned to face him fully. "What do you want to do? Forget the board, forget the legacy, forget everything else. What would make you happy?" "I want to be here. With Leo. Building a life that doesn't revolve around conference calls and profit margins." He looked at me, and there was something raw in his expression. I want more nights like this, where someone else is in my home and it doesn't feel like an intrusion, where I can come out of my office and find someone who cares enough to wash my dishes. The air between us felt charged suddenly, heavy with unspoken things. I should have stepped back, put some distance between us, but I couldn't seem to move. Jonah, I need to be honest with you about something, okay? I'm not looking for casual friendship here. I know that probably sounds presumptuous, given that we barely know each other, but I learned when my wife died that life is too short to pretend you don't feel things. He took a step closer, and I feel something when I'm around you, something I haven't felt in a very long time. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Gordon, this is moving really fast. I know, and if you need me to slow down, I will. But I also need you to know that this matters to me. You matter to me. Before I could respond, Leo's voice called out from his bedroom. Jonah, can you come here for a minute? The moment broke and Gordon stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I'll go check on him. No, it's fine. He called for me. I was grateful for the interruption, for a chance to escape the intensity of that kitchen and the feelings swirling between us. Leo was sitting up in bed, his dinosaur clutched in his arms. I can't sleep. Will you tell me a story? I sat on the edge of his bed. What kind of story? One about brave people. Like you. I'm not particularly brave, buddy. Yes, you are. You saved me when everyone else ran away. His voice got quieter. Do you think my mama was brave? Papa says she was, but I don't remember much about her anymore. My throat felt tight. I think anyone who faces life with love in their heart is brave. And from what your papa has told me, your mama loved you and him very much. So yes, I think she was incredibly brave. Do you think she'd be okay with you being here, with us? The question caught me completely off guard. What do you mean? Papa seems happier when you're around. He smiles more, he doesn't look so sad all the time. Leo was looking at me with those serious eyes that seemed too old for his young face. I want him to be happy again, and I think you make him happy. I didn't know what to say to that. So instead I just sat with him until he drifted off to sleep, his breathing evening out into the gentle rhythm of childhood dreams. When I came back out to the living room, Gordon was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights spread below us like a carpet of stars. He asked if I make you happy, I said quietly. Gordon didn't turn around. What did you tell him? I didn't tell him anything. I didn't know what to say. I moved closer until I was standing beside him at the window. Do I make you happy? Now he did turn, and the look on his face stole my breath. More than I thought possible. More than I think I deserve after the mistakes I've made. Gordon, I'm falling for you, Jonah. I know it's too soon and too complicated and probably completely unfair to put that on you. But Leo was right to ask that question. Because yes, you make me happy. You make us both happy. And I haven't been able to say that truthfully in over 2 years. I should have run. Should have made excuses and left and put distance between myself and this family that was starting to feel dangerous to my carefully constructed walls. But instead I heard myself say, I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of how fast it's moving. Of how much I already care about both of you. Of what happens when reality crashes back in and reminds us that you're a CEO and I'm a janitor taking night classes. Those are just labels. They don't define who we are. He reached out and took my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. I'm scared too. Terrified, actually. But I'm more scared of not taking this chance and spending the rest of my life wondering what could have been. The silence stretched between us, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. Finally, I squeezed his hand and said, I can't promise this will work out. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for you to stay. To give us a chance to figure out what this could be. Okay? I whispered. I'll stay. He pulled me into his arms then, and I let myself lean into the embrace, breathing in the scent of his cologne and the warmth of his body. Outside the window, the city continued its endless motion, millions of lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to predict. We stood there for a long time, neither of us willing to let go. Both of us knowing that everything had just changed in ways we couldn't fully understand yet. Everything felt perfect until the morning Richard Stokes called me. I was stocking shelves at the bookstore where I'd picked up extra shifts, trying to balance my growing involvement with Gordon and Leo against the practical reality that I still had bills to pay. My phone buzzed with an unknown number, and when I answered, a smooth corporate voice invited me to coffee. Just a brief chat, Mr. Mills. I think we have some mutual interests to discuss. I should have said no, should have recognized the warning signs in his overly polite tone. But curiosity got the better of me. And 2 hours later I found myself sitting across from a man in an immaculate suit who radiated the kind of confidence that comes from holding power over others. Richard Stokes didn't waste time on pleasantries. He ordered an espresso, took one sip, and then fixed me with a look that reminded me of a snake sizing up its prey. Let me be blunt, Mr. Mills. You're destroying Gordon's career. The words hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about? Since you entered his life, Gordon has become unreliable. He declined the London expansion, which would have been the biggest move in the company's history. He leaves meetings early. He's distracted during presentations. Yesterday he actually told the board that his family came before quarterly profits. Richard leaned forward, his expression hardening. Do you understand what that kind of statement does to investor confidence? Gordon has a son who needs him. He's trying to be a good father. He's trying to play house with someone completely unsuitable, and it's gonna cost him everything his grandfather built. Richard slid a folder across the table. We did our research. Part-time janitor. Student loans totaling $43,000. No degree, no family connections, no relevant experience in our world. You're a distraction at best, a gold digger at worst. My hands clenched into fists under the table. You don't know anything about me or what Gordon and I have. What you have is temporary infatuation that's clouding his judgment. You know it even if you won't admit it to yourself. Richard stood up, leaving his coffee unfinished. Do the right thing, Mr. Mills. Walk away before Gordon loses everything that actually matters. His company, his legacy, his son's financial security. All the things you can't possibly provide. He left me sitting there, his words echoing in my mind like poison. The worst part was that some of what he'd said resonated with doubts I'd been trying to ignore. I was out of my depth in Gordon's world. Everyone could see it except maybe Gordon himself. For 3 days I avoided Gordon's calls. I sent brief text responses claiming I was busy with work, with classes, with anything that would keep distance between us. Each ignored call made me feel worse. But I couldn't face him until I'd sorted through the mess in my own head. On the 4th day, Gordon showed up at my apartment. He didn't knock politely. He pounded on the door like he was trying to break it down, and when I opened it, the expression on his face was something I'd never seen before. Anger mixed with hurt and a desperate kind of fear. What's going on, Jonah? Talk to me right now. Nothing's going on. I've just been busy. Don't lie to me. He pushed past me into the apartment, and I could see his hands shaking. I know you. I know when something's wrong. Did I do something? Say something? It's not you. Then what? He spun to face me, and there were tears in his eyes. One day everything's fine, we're planning for Leo's birthday party together. And the next you're ghosting me. I deserve an explanation. The words came out before I could stop them. Would you have turned down London if we weren't together? The question hung in the air between us. Gordon went very still, his expression shifting from anger to understanding. Who did you talk to? Was it Rich? My silence was answer enough. What did he say to you? Gordon's voice had dropped to something dangerous and controlled. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about the coffee meeting, about Richard's accusations, about the folder with my financial information. With each word I watched Gordon's face cycle through emotions, finally settling on a cold fury I hadn't known he was capable of. He had no right to approach you, no right to investigate your private life, no right to make you doubt yourself or us. But he wasn't wrong, was he? I am affecting your decisions. The London project would have been huge for the company. The London project would have taken me away from my son for 6 months. It would have disrupted his therapy, his schooling, his entire sense of stability. That's not a sacrifice I'm willing to make, and my decision has nothing to do with you. Gordon crossed the room and grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Richard is trying to manipulate you because he can't manipulate me anymore. He wants a CEO who'll put profits over people, and I refuse to be that person again. But what if staying with me costs you everything? Your position, your company, your grandfather's legacy. Then I'll build something new. Something that doesn't require me to sacrifice the people I care about. His grip tightened. Jonah, I need to know right now if you're with me or if you're going to let Richard's poison destroy what we have. Because I can't fight both him and you. The vulnerability in his voice broke something open inside me. I'm scared, Gordon. Scared that I'm not enough. That I'll never fit into your world. That one day you'll wake up and realize Richard was right about me. Richard is a bitter man who thinks success means dying alone in a corner office. Gordon pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. You want to know what success looks like to me now? It's Leo laughing at breakfast. It's falling asleep with someone I trust. It's building a life that feels worth living instead of just profitable. That's what you've given me, and I won't let anyone take it away. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the tension slowly drain from his body. What are we going to do about Richard? We're going to face him together, and we're going to win. The determination in his voice made me believe it might actually be possible. Richard moved fast. Within a week of our conversation, he'd called an emergency board meeting with one item on the agenda. A vote of no confidence in Gordon's leadership. The notification came through official channels, giving Gordon only 48 hours to prepare his defense. I watched him work through the night pulling together presentations, financial reports, projections showing how his decisions had actually benefited the company, despite Richard's claims. But we both knew the real battle wouldn't be won with spreadsheets and data. It would come down to whether the board believed in Gordon's vision or Richard's. The morning of the meeting, Gordon was silent as he dressed in his most expensive suit, the armor of the corporate world. Leo sensed something was wrong despite our attempts to act normal at breakfast. Where are you going, Papa? He asked, pushing his cereal around his bowl. Just a work meeting, buddy. Nothing to worry about. Can Jonah stay with me while you're gone? Gordon looked at me and I nodded. Of course. We'll do something fun, okay? But Leo wasn't fooled. His small hand grabbed mine tightly as Gordon left, and his voice was small when he said, "Something bad is happening, isn't it?" I couldn't lie to him. Your papa has to make some important people understand why his choices are right. But he's strong, and he's smart, and he's going to be okay. Will you stay with us even if the bad people are mean to Papa? The question pierced straight through me. Yes, Leo. I'm not going anywhere. Hours crawled by. I helped Leo with homework. We built an elaborate dinosaur city out of blocks. We watched cartoons, but my mind was in that boardroom downtown, imagining how the battle was unfolding. When my phone finally buzzed with a message from Gordon, my hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. It's not going well. Richard has more support than I thought. Meet me outside the building. I need to see you both before the final vote. 20 minutes later, we were in the lobby of Ashford Tower. Gordon emerged from the elevator, looking exhausted, his tie loosened, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it. But when he saw Leo, his entire face softened. Hey buddy, are you winning, Papa? Gordon crouched down to Leo's level. I'm trying my best, but I need you to know something important. No matter what happens in there, no matter what decision those people make, nothing changes too much. I love you. Nothing changes our family. Okay. Leo hugged him tightly. You're the best papa in the whole world. Over Leo's head, Gordon's eyes met mine, and I saw fear there, real genuine terror that this might be the end of everything he'd built. I mouthed 2 words, "You've got this." He nodded and stood straightening his tie. I need to go back in. The vote is in 15 minutes. We'll wait here, I said. He kissed Leo's forehead. Then, in front of everyone in the busy lobby, he kissed me too. Quick but deliberate. A statement. That's for luck, he whispered, and then he was gone. The 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. Leo sat on my lap, unusually quiet, while I watched the elevator numbers and tried not to think about worst-case scenarios. If Gordon lost his position, what would that mean for us? Would he blame me for the distraction that cost him everything? Would Richard's poison finally take root? When Gordon finally reappeared, I couldn't read his expression. He walked toward us slowly, and my heart sank. Then Leo shouted, "Papa, did you win?" Gordon's face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen on him. I won, buddy. We won. The relief was so overwhelming I actually felt dizzy. What happened? Richard presented his case. All the numbers, all the opportunities he claimed I'd cost the company, all his concerns about my judgment being compromised. Then I stood up and gave them a choice. Gordon picked up Leo, holding him close. I told them about my grandfather's original mission statement when he founded the company, about how he believed business should serve families, not the other way around. I showed them the employee satisfaction surveys, which have gone up 30% since I started implementing flexible schedules and parental leave policies. I showed them retention rates and productivity metrics that prove happy employees work harder. And they listened? 3 of them did. That was enough to block Richard's vote. Gordon's smile turned sharp. Then I made my own motion. I proposed that any board member who attempts to interfere in an employee's personal life, conduct unauthorized background investigations, or creates hostile work environments, should be immediately removed from their position. Richard, I breathed, is no longer with the company. He resigned before the vote could even happen. Gordon set Leo down and pulled me into a fierce hug. It's over. We can stop looking over our shoulders. Relief made my legs weak, and I held on to him like he was the only solid thing in the world. I was so scared. So was I. But you told me I had this, and I believed you. He pulled back enough to look at me. I meant what I said in there, about family coming first, about not sacrificing the people I care about for profit margins. That's not just corporate speak, Jonah. That's my promise to you and to Leo. Leo tugged on both our sleeves. Does this mean Jonah gets to stay forever? Gordon and I looked at each other, and in that moment, I saw our future laid out clearly. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be other Richards, other challenges, other battles to fight, but we'd face them together. Yeah, buddy, Gordon said softly, still looking at me. Jonah gets to stay forever. And for the first time since that day in the smoke-filled building, I felt like I could finally breathe freely. 3 months after the boardroom battle, my life was unrecognizable in the best possible way. I'd moved into Gordon's penthouse, though calling it that felt wrong now. It wasn't a penthouse anymore. It was home. The changes had been gradual but profound. My books filled the shelves alongside Gordon's business texts. Leo's artwork covered the refrigerator and most of one wall in the living room. The sterile, perfect space had transformed into something lived in and loved, with scattered dinosaur toys and coffee mugs left on tables and photographs pinned to bulletin boards. I'd finished my graphic design program and, with Gordon's encouragement, had started freelancing. My first major client was Ashford Digital Marketing, though Gordon had been careful to keep that at arm's length to avoid any appearance of favoritism. The work I did was good enough to speak for itself, and soon other clients followed. Leo was thriving. His therapist reported breakthrough after breakthrough, and his teacher sent home glowing reports about his improved social skills and academic performance. He'd stopped having nightmares about the fire, though he still slept with that stuffed dinosaur every night. Tonight the 3 of us were sprawled across the massive sectional couch, halfway through an animated movie about dragons that Leo had insisted we watch. He was wedged between Gordon and me, his head on my shoulder, one small hand holding mine while the other clutched Gordon's shirt. The movie played on, but I wasn't really watching. I was thinking about how impossible this would have seemed 6 months ago, how I'd been a janitor working 2 jobs, how Gordon had been a workaholic slowly drowning in grief and obligation, how Leo had been a traumatized child struggling to process his mother's death. And now we were here, together. A family that shouldn't have worked on paper but somehow fit together perfectly in reality. Jonah? Leo's sleepy voice pulled me from my thoughts. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. Very happy. Why do you ask? Because Papa asked me the same thing today, and I wanted to make sure you were happy too. His eyes were already closing, exhaustion winning out over his determination to finish the movie. I looked at Gordon over Leo's head and found him already watching me with that soft expression that still made my heart skip beats. I'm happier than I ever thought possible, I said honestly. Good, Leo mumbled. Because I asked Papa if we could adopt you officially, and he said we'd talk about it. My breath caught. Gordon's eyes widened slightly, and I could see he hadn't expected Leo to bring this up quite so directly. Buddy, we talked about letting that be a surprise, Gordon said gently. But I want Jonah to know we want him forever. Leo's words were slurring now as sleep pulled him under. Not just visiting forever, real forever. Within minutes, he was fully asleep, his breathing evening out into the peaceful rhythm of childhood dreams. Gordon carefully lifted him and carried him to his bedroom. I heard the familiar sounds of tucking in, the whispered goodnight, the nightlight clicking on. When Gordon returned, he found me still sitting on the couch, my mind reeling from Leo's casual bomb drop. "So," Gordon said, settling beside me, "that wasn't how I planned to bring this up. He wants you to adopt me." I tried to keep my tone light, but emotion was making my voice rough. "I'm pretty sure that's not how adoption works." "No, but it is how family works." Gordon took my hand, intertwining our fingers. "Leo sees you as his parent, not a replacement for his mother, but something equally important. And he's right. You parent him. You show up for school events. You help with homework. You know his medication schedule and his food preferences, and which stuffed animal he needs for comfort. You're his family." "Gordon, let me finish." He shifted to face me fully. "I'm not asking you to legally adopt Leo, though if you wanted to pursue that down the line, I'd support it completely. What I'm asking is if you want to make this official. Us. This family we've built together." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What exactly are you asking?" Gordon reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Not a ring box, I realized with relief. Something else. He opened it to reveal 2 silver bands, simple and elegant, commitment bands. One for each of us. A promise that we're choosing this, choosing each other, choosing to be a family on purpose. His voice was steady but his hands were shaking slightly. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other 6 months, but I also know that I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with you. Building this life we've started. Raising Leo together. Being partners in every sense of the word." Tears were streaming down my face before I even realized I was crying. "Yes. God, yes." He slipped one band onto my finger, and I did the same for him. They were warm from being in his pocket, and they fit perfectly. "There's one more thing," Gordon said, pulling me close. "I restructured the London project to be completely remote. But I also started working on something new. A foundation in my wife's name, focused on supporting single parents and their children. I want you to help me run it." "Me? Gordon. I don't have experience with that kind of thing." "You have experience being exactly what a grieving family needs. You saved Leo's life, but you also saved mine. That's the perspective we need. Not more corporate types, but someone who understands what really matters." I kissed him then, pouring everything I felt into it. Gratitude and love and hope and fear and joy all mixed together. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Thank you for not running away. Thank you for staying even when it got hard. Thank you for showing me what family can be," I whispered back. That night, with Gordon asleep beside me and Leo's soft breathing audible through the baby monitor we still kept for comfort, I lay awake thinking about the journey that had brought us here. From smoke and fire and fear to this quiet, perfect moment of peace. I'd gone into a burning building to save a child I didn't know. And in return, I'd been given something I never expected to find: a home, a family, and a future worth fighting for.